All right, Soprano review, season 1, episode 7. Before I start, let me give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Ratchet Clothing. By now, everybody knows Ratchet's a clothing company out of the UK. Ratchet has clothing for men, women, and children. I'm going to put a link down below. Go check them out, see what they have. So the episode starts off with AJ Soprano and a bunch of his friends sneak into the church and they start drinking the communion wine. I think this happens a lot with kids. I remember with my friends, we were running around the church when nobody was there years ago. We lived across the street from the church. Next thing you know, they're in their gym class, and obviously the teacher starts smelling alcohol in their breath, which leads to them going to the principal's office. When AJ gets there, his father and mother are there, and they have a school psychologist, and he's talking about some kind of trouble that AJ has, that he kind of breaks the rules. And Tony Soprano gets a smirk on his face. He's obviously thinking that he reminds him of himself. He goes on to say how AJ don't weigh the consequences, or he don't think before he acts. And as I wrote in the blog, the face that Tony Soprano puts on is priceless. He obviously thinks the apple will fall far from the tree. So in the next scene, Tony Soprano is visiting Christopher, who he has there at a construction site. He has him as like a safety manager. He's checking union dues. He's stopping work. He's there to cause trouble, obviously. The project superintendent or foreman, whoever he is, comes over to complain to Tony Soprano, and he even offers to pay him. Construction, as far as the mob goes, that's their bread and butter. You know, years ago, they were more involved with the unions, not so much today, but they do have their hand in things. So back at the house, Tony Soprano's mother and his uncle Junior are over for dinner, and they start bringing up stories about Tony Soprano, I guess when he was in trouble when he was younger. And naturally, he don't want his son to hear these things, so he gets upset. Next, he's back in therapy with Dr. Melfi, and he starts to bring up what the school psychologist said, that AJ may possibly have ADD. And she asks him, do you see his behavior as a reflection of your own? He wouldn't admit to it. And then Dr. Melfi switches gears and she brings up his feelings towards her, as we know from episode 6. And he turns around and tells her, I just can't turn off my feelings because you tell me it's a byproduct of my therapy. Next, he brings up, which was a little strange, he starts flaunting that he has this 24-year-old Russian girl. And I think he's trying to get her jealous. And then he gives her a knock. He says, and how old are you? I was laughing. But he starts reflecting back to his childhood when he was a young boy, and he witnessed his father and Uncle Junior giving a guy a beating that owed them money. And the doctor asked if AJ knows about his lifestyle. He really didn't want to discuss it, but he's equating his life when he was young to now his son's life. So following a session that AJ had with a school psychologist, he goes to visit his grandmother. That was part of his punishment, that he had to go visit her. And he starts explaining what took place in school, that he had a session with the psychologist, and the grandmother becomes very upset. He breaks the news to her that his father's also seeing a psychologist. So I wrote, it's only a matter of time before this junior soprano finds out, and we all know that she's close to him. So Tony Soprano now is driving AJ to his dentist appointment, and he questions him about a comment made at the dinner table. AJ admits to his father that the kids at school are making comments that his father's in the mafia. And Tony Soprano asks him, what's his feelings on that? And the kid mentions, his Uncle Jackie's funeral, and that there was all these guys there, and guys writing down license plates, taking pictures. He said, those were the feds, right? Just like in The Godfather 1. Everybody remembers that scene. They had the wedding and the FBI was outside taking license plates. Back at Dr. Murphy's office again, Tony Soprano inquires if she thinks AJ's issues are hereditary. And, because he felt that if his father had been a working guy, his life may have turned out differently. And that's probably true. And he remembers a time when his father took his sister to an amusement park, but left him behind. And if you remember from the episode, he winds up hiding in the trunk, and that's how he finds all this out. And it turns out that his father was really only using his sister as a prop because he was going in to conduct business with Uncle Junior in there. And at one point, he witnesses both his father and his Uncle Junior getting pinched, or as we say, getting arrested. And Dr. Melfi asks him if his father have ever been to prison. And a lot of guys mention prison and what they told their kids or what their family told their kids where they were, right? I think my kids were told that I was upstate working somewhere. At some point, they don't believe it. And, I had to explain where I was. But I cracked up at what he was told where his father was when his father was away. He said, yeah, he was away when I was a little kid, but they told me he was in Montana being a cowboy. That line was great. So all of this has him destined to believe that AJ is going to turn out like him as he turned out like his own father. And Dr. Melfi asks, do you think that everything that happened is preordained? And he replies, well, then how come I'm not making pots in Peru? You're born into this shit. You are what you are. And what he means by that, he means the life. Some people are born into that life because their family members are in the life. And, it is what it is. While visiting his mother, Tony Soprano questions her on why she didn't let the father take the family to Nevada. There was a scene where the father brings up going to Nevada, it turned into an argument, so obviously they didn't go. And she took offense to this, and she called him Mr. Sensitive, and she suggested that he go see a psychiatrist, which made him stop and think a minute, but she threw the dig, obviously, unbeknown to him, about what AJ told her. In light of what he just heard, he tells her that she's the real gangster of the family because she's so ruthless. Back to the school, he has another meeting with his wife, Tony Soprano, with the school psychologist, and he's listening to the evaluation and the diagnosis that they came up with. And that is that AJ is borderline ADD. And he tactfully tells the doctor off, puts him in his place, and his wife does as well. In the final scene, Tony Soprano is seen making sundaes for him and his son. And you could see that he's proud of his son, despite what the doctor had told him, and that he's kind of comfortable now with his son following his own footsteps. And that's how it ends. So it was interesting. It was more about a father-son relationship, this one, not too much more with the other guys and the other people in the show. I hope you all enjoyed it. That's it for now. Till the next time. Ciao.